Hello, good morning, world changers. I hope you're all well. Welcome to the Change Your World podcast. I'm Suzy Beaumont, personal development consultant and founder of Change Your World, a health and happiness organization designed to support you to create the life that you really want to live. This week is week 4 of our Survivor's Guide to Narcissistic Abuse, with Randi Fine, our professional abuse counsellor and author of Close Encounters of the Worst Kind. Now, we've decided to team up together for this podcast series because if, like us, you've been on the receiving end of narcissistic abuse, you will know how destructive it can be. But it's even more destructive if you don't even know you're dealing with a narcissist. So our aim with the series is to educate you, because if you know the signs to look out for, you're less likely to become a victim of their abuse, but also understanding this disorder will help you to heal from it. So today we're going to talk about leaving the narcissist in your life, because it's not as straightforward as you think, and it's vital to put in some measures in place before you decide to take that leap and prevent the fallout that will no doubt follow from walking away from the narcissist in your life. Now, please do remember, if you are triggered by anything or upset, or if you're listening to this and starting to realize that you may be dealing with a narcissist and you need some support, Randi is available, and you can check out all her resources at randifine.com, and do also check out a book, as mentioned, Close Encounters of the Worst Kind. It is an absolute Bible to rely on. It's been a complete lifesaver for us. So yeah, do check it out. So again, welcome, Randi. Lovely to see you again. I look forward to these conversations we have each week, because one, helping me personally, me and my partner, but yeah, I just know what this is doing for other people, because until you understand you're dealing with a narcissist, it is crazy making, as we keep discussing each week. But
yeah, thank you, Suzy. I'm so happy to be back, and I do look forward to these too. The more content we can put out there, the more people we can reach, and wake society up to this epidemic problem. It's huge, and everyone has experienced it in some way, but many do not know that they have.
Today we are talking about leaving the narcissist. We're not just talking about romantic relationships. We are talking about the friendships, the workplaces, the family members, how to cut the narcissist out of your life, and what measures to put in place before you take that leap, and what can be the fallout if you don't, what happens when you start the plan of leaving a narcissist, and what to actually do if you can't cut that narcissist completely out of your life for whatever reason. So, first of all, explain why walking away from a relationship with a narcissist is not just like walking away from any other relationship.
Okay, so narcissists consider their targets, the people that they're in quote unquote relationships with, as property, not as people, not as a colleague, not as a equal family member, not as an equal partner, but property. So
this property to do whatever they want with,
their own,
to
right,
fuel their unmet needs, their
exactly
insatiable unmet needs that can never be met.
Absolutely. Actually. Right. So narcissists do not know who we are as people. They don't care who we are as people, no matter what the relationship is. So
even though they will put on a good act that they do.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's learned behavior. It is not natural. For you and I, we have, over the years, we learn how to relate to people. We know it's coming from inside of us. Narcissists are only calling on this textbook that they've developed in brains that allows them to fit into society. And they must fit in, because if they showed who they truly are, which is what you see once they let their mask down, they'd never be able to capture the narcissistic supply they need from the people they need to give it to them. So they have to be chameleons. They have to disguise themselves in different personas to get what they need. And so, as I've said before, the narcissist does not have a personality. There is no personality there. There's no self-identity. It is formed based on each interaction, each person, and what they need to solicit from that person. And what they're soliciting is adulation, admiration, and attention, which I've gone into in the past. I'm not going to waste time explaining it, but that's basically it. So when you leave a narcissist, whether you leave, this is really interesting, whether you leave them or they leave you, it's basically seen the same way, because you are always wrong no matter what you do. So if they leave you, they're going to blame it on the fact that you did something that made them leave you. If you leave them, it's the same thing. You did something to them. So it's always you hurting them. And they're not so willing to give up supply that they've counted on. And so leaving a narcissist is stealing from them. And they cannot, since you're not really an individual, it's almost perceived as, how dare you? How dare you take my property from me? I'm going to make your life miserable. You stole from me. You're cutting me loose. You're taking away what I need from you. And I'm going to wage a war against you. So we have to understand that. And when we leave, that's when smear campaigns and the discard phase and all these things happen. It's a reaction to losing the supply. So it would be like, if a drug addict was in rehab and all of a sudden they can't have their drug anymore. Well, the first thing they do is they try anything to convince people to get them out of there, because they need it so badly. And they lie and they make up stories about the situation. So this is the narcissist. They can't breathe, in essence, without their supply.
So first of all, to summarize, so first of all, leaving a narcissist, one, you can never win, and I think that's for people that are on the receiving end of narcissism, that's a hard one to get your head around, because you want to expose them, you want to show people what you've been through, you want to, but they are, as we've discussed in the previous podcast, they are master manipulators. They twist everything. It's always your fault. They gaslight you. They will make up stories, smear campaigns and what have you, to the point where anybody looking in doesn't know what the truth is or who to believe anymore, because they're extremely charming as well. They're quite smart, clever, quick thinkers, as you've explained in the previous podcast. So the message, I suppose, I'm looking to convey, and it's certainly one that myself and my partner are looking to get to a point of, is just knowing our own truth and standing in that truth and not trying to convince anybody else. Just let them unravel. And you have to get to that place of healing and just going, I know the truth. I know what we've been exposed to. I know what they've done. I know what you've done, that narcissist out there. So, but it takes a while to get that, especially, you mentioned there, smear campaigns, the discard phase. So before we get onto that, I want to talk, because my understanding, and please correct me, is there seems to be 3 stages if you're in a relationship with a narcissist. And I'm talking all relationships, friendships, work relationships, romantic relationships, where you have the love bombing stage. And again, do check out our previous podcast because we have covered all this. Love bombing, where they fully charm you. Then there's the control and breaking you down stage. And then there's the discard phase, where if they're choosing to leave you, is that because you have no more fuel supply for them? There's no more need for you? Okay, yes. So they've run out, yes. Taken everything they can. So talk us through that discard phase, because they won't just do that. It seems like it's very quick and it's overnight for the victim, but it can be a 6-month campaign leading up to that, or even longer if need be, where they're putting in the foundations to back up their story and their smear campaign that's going to come. Is that right?
Yes, in essence. Narcissists know from day one that this is not going to be a forever situation.
Okay. Despite them saying, oh, you're the one, or, whatever, They
know there's an exit date. They know it's going to come at some point. And so all along the way, they truly are setting you up. They're setting up scenarios where they can then use them against you. And one of the things that we do that's really natural for us, but it's the opposite of what we should do, is respond to their provocations. Because when they provoke you, when they accuse you of something, when they abuse you, when they put you down, our natural inclination is to fight for ourselves, is to defend ourselves. And the reason they do this is because they're trying to gather more information, more ammunition to use against us. And we willingly give it to them, not realizing what we're doing. So all along the way, we are giving them all the fuel to hurt us when the time comes. At the end, yes, when they discard us, it's generally because we are not giving them the amount of supply they need, or they have found fresh new supply somewhere else. And they'd rather switch it up and take on that because that makes them feel better. So it could be either thing. But leading up to the end, the abuse is going to ramp up. But the way we're going to feel this is we're going to lose ourselves more and more and more in it. We're going to not know who we are. We're not going to know what to trust. We're not going to trust our intuitions, because everything is gaslighting. Everything is made to look like it's our fault. We feel tremendous guilt over what is happening, because we can't imagine why it would happen if we weren't doing something. So we're really, at the end, we're really stripped clean, from who we are. And if a narcissist leaves you, they generally will leave you completely broken and devastated. You're not going to know what happened. So
they will convince you that you're having a breakdown, or you're depressed, or you're crazy, you're not functioning correctly. I'm thinking about one friend who told me their story, and when he was starting to think about leaving his wife, she would say, you need to go to the doctors, you're depressed. And eventually he went to the doctors, and the doctor said, what can I do? And he said, oh, I think my wife thinks I'm depressed. And the doctor said, what do you think? And he said, I don't think I'm depressed. I just think I'm bloody miserable in this relationship. And that was his wake-up call, to realize he had that moment of clarity and to say, this actually isn't me, but I'm being convinced. And they were projecting she had a history of mental health and depression, and she was projecting her behavior onto him, and again, but making out that it was his fault. But yet there was a whole kind of campaign, the smear campaign had started, telling friends and families, he's depressed, he's this, he's not a good father, he's not this, he's not that, just really starting to tell friends, family, neighbours. So putting all those seeds in. So when it came to really ramping up the smear campaign, people were going to think he was at fault.
Exactly. And they will use things all along the way. So for instance, say a woman has had a baby and she suffered some postpartum depression. The narcissist will carry that on and on and on and blame everything on the fact that she's depressed from this, or if she lost a baby, that she's never gotten over this. And this is all based on this. If you've seen a doctor, seen a psychiatrist, and maybe needed some medication for something, anxiety or something like that, it will be magnified to the point where you are now mentally ill.
Yeah.
So they're going to use anything that they possibly can. And my gosh, I mean, we have to live our lives. We can't hide every little thing that we do and feel. But understand,
you can't go through the life that we live. Life is so challenging, and every single one of us will have a moment where we need support, or we need to go to a doctor and say, I'm struggling, I need some time off work, I need, grief, bereavement, losing family, friends, loved ones, all these life challenges. But that's, we all go through this. That's where a narcissist will manipulate it.
Yes.
And magnify it.
They zone in on those specific times.
And it sounds so plausible because of course, if a mother lost a baby, of course you'd be like, oh, how would you ever get over that? Of course it sounds completely plausible. And I think you said this in one of the previous podcasts, that there will be a grain of truth in the story, but it's maybe like 10% and 90% will be lies.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They build up a narrative around pretty much anything. And when you leave a narcissist, they cannot see, and I want people to really understand this, they cannot see that they have done anything wrong, that they've caused this, that they've forced you out, that they have been cruel in leaving you. It will never be their fault in their mind. So they will come up with a whole bunch of scenarios. It's got to be this, it's got to be that, it's got to be, you're having an affair, you don't love me anymore, you're going through something, and you're mentally ill, or whatever it is. They will come up with excuse after excuse after excuse, and never ever admit or recognize that they were the source of your problem.
No. So this is why marriage counseling or anything like that would never ever work. If you're in relationship with a romantic relationship with a narcissist, or even if it's a workplace situation and you're sent for mediation, it's not going to work, because they won't take accountability or responsibility or ownership of any part of that co-creation of the relationship breaking down.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. They cannot see. The nature of the pathology is that they are blind to the effect they have on people. They do not see it. They don't care. It doesn't bother them. They feel entitled. So they can go about treating people any way they want to. And there will never be accountability for it, because in order to have accountability, you have to realize that something, is right or wrong. And they feel entitled to treat you any way they want. And the way that they're able to do that, well, there's different ways that they're able to do that, but one of the main ways that they do this is by objectifying and dehumanizing everyone in their life. So they're taking away your humanity, they're taking away you as a person, and they're basically treating you as if you are a paper cutout that they can just move around. There's nothing more to you. And so in their mind, to abuse a paper cutout, it's not going to hurt anybody or anything. So they have to reduce us down to nothing, till we're really nothing. They do not see us as worthy people, as people who have feelings. They don't care. They literally don't care.
And I want to pick up on that word entitled, because I think that's a key word that's really one of the things that I've kind of struggled with, and I've certainly heard other clients and people I've spoken to about this, that, you know, they must know what they're doing. They must, because they're covert about it. You don't do it, you know, they put on the different faces. So they must know that it's wrong. However, even though they know it's wrong, one, they don't care, but two, it's that entitlement. They feel I am entitled to hurt and control and abuse you in any which way suits me and my needs, because it's about me. Right. And I think if anybody's sort of listening to this, struggling to get their head around it, keep that word entitled in your mind, because that's how they believe. They are, you know, they are entitled, and you see it. I mean, that, you know, the narcissist that we've been dealing with, you know, I see that entitled response all the time, and just that expectation. How dare you? How dare you question me? How dare you challenge me? Or don't I expect you to behave this way? How dare you even try not to, or go have a difference of opinion? You know, it really is that entitlement and expectation. So keeping that in mind, you've come to the decision, you have to cut this relationship loose, you have to get out. And you know, anybody listening to this is thinking, oh my God, I've got a whole smear campaign, there's going to be a complete fallout from this. How on earth do you even begin to navigate out of a relationship and cut this, end this relationship?
Right. So we hear a lot of tactics to use. One is gray rocking. We hear limited contact, no contact. You know, ultimately, if you are in a relationship with a narcissist, you eventually will have to go, because if you don't, you will be destroyed mentally and physically. Not because they will hurt you physically, but because your body will not be able to take the immense stress that you're under. People talk about gray rocking. Okay, so let's talk about that. So gray rocking means giving no supply. It means not reacting to anything that they say. It means talking in a monotone voice. It means no eye contact. Just basically walking around like you're nothing, that you give them nothing, which
like
takes away
nothing, not,
right,
yeah.
No supply. You're giving them no supply, because if you don't look at them, you don't react to them. That is, if you think you want to torture a narcissist, it's not by what you say, it's by what you don't say. So the more silent you are, the crazier they feel, because and then when when they feel this craziness ramping up in them, they're going to ramp it up with you to try to solicit. So gray rocking isn't just doing this and then they're going, oh, I'm not getting anything, okay, I'll move on. No, what they do is they say, oh my God, I'm starving, give me air, and they will fight you. And but it's interesting when you do this, when you gray rock, you will see them, if you don't react to all the changes and things that they're trying to do to you, the rage and then the silent treatment. If you sit back and you don't react to anything, you're going to see them cycle through tactics. They're going to try one after the other, after the other. And it's really interesting, because when you see this, you'll realize what has been done to you.
Yeah.
Because they have a bag of tricks and they cycle through them. If one thing doesn't work, they try another. Rage works very good. They train us very well through rage. So that's gray rocking.
Also, they know the points that trigger you. They know your most vulnerable points. So they will, I mean, you know, think of the wound and they will stick their thing and their fist right in there. You know, get the knife and twist it, add some salt in there. You know, they'll go for it. There's no limits.
No limits. No. They want to hurt you. They want to hurt you because by hurting you, they get fed. In essence, they get fed. So then there's limited contact. Limited contact is where you set a boundary. And you have to set an ironclad boundary that that there's a reason why they will not cross it. And which means that people will say, well, I've told them, don't ever do that to me again. I will never accept that again. And what do? The next day, they're back to their old tricks because they have nothing to lose by you saying it that way. When you set a boundary, you have to state consequences. I will no longer tolerate A, B, C, D, E. If you cross my boundary, this is the consequence. And when you first do it, because most people who are in these relationships don't even know what a boundary feels like. So you want to set your boundaries with mild consequences that you can carry through. Because otherwise you're going to look like a fool and they're not going to believe you. So you have to be able to carry out what you say you're going to. But I recommend the 3 strikes you're out thing. So you tell them what you will not tolerate. The first boundary may be very loose and say, if you cross these boundaries, this is what is going to happen. And with each time this happens, you can make the boundaries harsher and harsher to the point where you eventually will say, I'm gone, you're losing me, I'm out of here, bye-bye.
And this is where, you know, if you're not sure that you are dealing with a narcissist, this is a surefire testing kit to determine if you are, because if you are in a healthy relationship or a relationship that's gone a bit off course, you know, it can get back on course with setting your healthy boundaries. But a narcissist will absolutely abuse those boundaries every time. Right.
So, you know, there has to be something, you have to figure out what it is they want from you and what they're afraid to lose. And be very real about it. You know, it's not like they're just going to be afraid to lose you. They're going to be afraid if you have a child and they're the grandparent, then they're afraid that you're going to take that child away from them. They're not going to be able to see their child. So there's different things. You've got to figure out what it is, where their Achilles heel is, and use that. The problem with boundary setting is that, as you say, Suzy, they will cross them. So it's only a matter of time before they push through it, because there's no reason for them to have a relationship with you if they can't have full access to your mind. They need to have full access to you. And they will fight you tooth and nail to do this. And they will test you just like a child. So the first time you set a boundary, you can be guaranteed they're going to cross it. But you have to be ready to follow through on the consequences, because you have to show them you are in control. So what in essence is happening with this is they have to be afraid of you. It has to switch. The power has to switch, where you are now in control and they are your puppet, and they don't like it. But they will do it for a while if they really have something to lose. So limited contact means continuing your relationship with a boundary system.
I mean, the irony here, it almost sounds like you've the victim has to become the narcissist, you know, and play them at their own game and mirror their own behavior, which goes against, I mean, most, I would say, I'm making a generalization, and you can correct me, but I would say most people that succumb to narcissistic abuse are probably empaths, and this is absolutely going against their nature and their own personalities on every level, and it will feel so uncomfortable to do.
It will. It will feel very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable.
It's going to feel toxic to carry out that behavior, because you find it abhorrent, you hate it being done to yourself or seeing somebody else being a victim of it. But so to carry it out, it seems, I don't know, I can't. It's just
very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And this is why limited contact is a difficult thing to do. But I always recommend that everyone start with limited contact, because what happens is if you go from where you're at, which is not very well, you're not doing well, you're confused and you're conflicted and you have a lot of guilt feelings. If you go from there to no contact, the guilt is going to eat you up, because your logic is going to say to you, well, I never really explained why I disappeared. Well, I never said why I stopped doing this. And even though you don't owe any explanation, you're still going to beat yourself up with this and like, oh, they're missing me, because they will tell you that, oh, I miss you, and everything will be different.
This is the hoovering stage, isn't it? Where we pretend they've changed, they've heard you, I understand how you feel, let's get back together, let's sort this out, I won't do it again. Pretend to be charming. They go right back to the love bombing stage again.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I never recommend you jump into a no contact, because inevitably you're going to backtrack, because the guilts are going to get you and you're going to get sucked back in at some point, and then your resolve is totally weakened. I mean, they're not going to believe you.
And it's like being back in the hole again, and you've just found your strength to climb out of that hole, and then you're in an even deeper hole. You're thinking, oh God, I've got to do it all again,
Exactly. So it's important that you, if you want to do limited contact, you have to do it the right way. But understand that it's just going to buy you time. And what's good about limited contact is you're going to get a little more clarity as to what you're dealing with when you do this. You're going to begin to see the behaviors more clearly when you flip the power to you and take it away from them. Then you begin to see it. When you can see it, then it's easier for you to leave, because then you know what you're dealing with. But it's a very difficult thing to do. And I recommend that, don't do it unless you know exactly how to do this, because it's not going to work for you unless you do it properly. In my book, Close Encounters of the Worst Kind, I have a whole chapter on setting boundaries, how to do it, what limited contact looks like, what no contact looks like, or limited or measured contact, or whatever it is. So that's one way to do this. If you are stuck in these relationships.
So examples of where you might be stuck in these relationships is, well, if you're trying to separate from a romantic relationship, if you've got kids, so you can't just divorce and go your own separate ways, or if you're in a business together, you're both directors of the business, or you work in it's a work environment and you don't have another job to go to, or it's a family member and it's your mom, it's your dad or your sister, you think, I can't cut my family out, I can't not talk to them, they need me, especially if they have an illness or a disability. There's always that guilt there of abandoning and walking away. So that's why we're talking about limited contact and getting your healthy boundaries. Sometimes
there's ways that you can do this, but you have to know what you're dealing with, because the narcissist is an actor and a chameleon. You've got to learn to act. And it's not about you hurting anybody, because you can't hurt a narcissist. They're going to act like you're hurting them, but you can't hurt them. It's impossible to hurt
Always
them.
Remember, it's just an act. Yeah.
They don't care. So they're going to make it look like they care just because they want to lay the guilt on you. So, I lost my train of thought. So in these situations,
We're talking about limited contact
Right.
and not
So if
being able
you're-
to walk away.
Right. If you're stuck in these relationships, you've got to learn to play the game. And learning from the narcissist is the best way to do it. Because, for instance, narcissists will gaslight you. They'll tell you that what you said you didn't say, what you heard, you know, any of these things. They're going to tell you that your perception is way off. Well, it's very easy to do this back to them. So if they accuse you of something or say, but you said, you go, I never said that. And
So it really is mirroring their behavior, isn't it? It's becoming the narcissist.
You have to play it, but you knowing what you're doing. You have to throw them off balance because you've got to flip the power back to yourself. Another thing.
What does that actually do when you do that?
Well, what you want to do is when you throw a narcissist off balance, because they have a predictable way of dealing with you. They've figured you out. They're doing it this, you know, this way all the time. They know exactly how to push your buttons. When you throw them off balance, the abuse lessens because now they're scared. When the narcissist feels like they're in control of you, they have no fear at all because they're getting what they want. The fear they have is losing narcissistic supply. So when they see a change in you and you are now not their puppet, they get really scared. I'm going to lose my supply. I'm losing it. So then they have to start their hoovering. They have to start doing nice things. They all of a sudden become pleasant, compliant, easy to deal with because now they want to throw you off. And so they become a lot easier to deal with. And so what you're doing is buying time. And you want to try to make your environment as least toxic and abusive as possible. So by doing these things and throwing them off balance, you take away the stress of the environment. Now, you're still going to feel it because this is not you and you're putting it on, but there are things that you can do. And it's important to know who they are and what motivates them so that you can play around with it. One of the things that narcissists cannot resist is, and I've said this before to you or at least on, you know, these videos, that they cannot resist compliments. It is the kryptonite that takes away their power. You say something nice to a narcissist and they let everything go. They're like, it's all they want. It's the biggest feast ever. So so you can use these things and disarm them. And if the narcissist is really coming at you and really being, you know, relentless, and then you say, you know, I really admire the way you're able to, you know, to have an argument and the way you're able to prove your point. I really admire that. And they'll be like, oh, you disarm them because there's nothing more they can say. All
I thought of there was like, I really admire your tenacity to try and destroy my life.
Right. And so you can say, I really admire your tenacity, and then under your breath go to destroy my life. Because, right, you know, you throw in something that's positive, because then
a few swear words under my breath.
Right. The other thing that you can do is agree with them. So if they say, you are a friggin' whore and you're a this and you're a that and you're a cheater, you say, you're probably right. They have nothing.
Seriously, this works.
Yeah, it does. It works. Just say, yeah, maybe you have a point there. So instead
you can't argue with somebody that's not arguing back with you. You can't dance the tango if only one person's doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. So resistance is what you don't want to do. What you want to do is feed into it. But you know when you're doing it, why you're doing it. It's not that you are trying to lie or you're becoming a manipulator. This is called survival. Because staying in a relationship with a narcissist, you are not thriving, you are surviving.
Yeah.
That's all you are. Until you can get out, you're surviving.
I mean, before we move on, I want to go back to when you were saying about grey rocking and letting everything kind of, you know, not responding, not reacting, because this is what we're talking about here, very much going against your automatic default response, that trigger, and just and not reacting in any way.
Right.
What happens if the narcissist, will the narcissist pick up on this tactic? Because the narcissist could be watching this video right now and go, right, so that's what they're doing. Oh, they're grey rocking me. So what happens when they know what you're doing?
Well, it doesn't matter if they know what you're doing, because they're not thinking about it in terms of, oh, she never did this before. What they think of is their entire agenda is based on getting supply or losing supply. So they don't think about, excuse me, I'm going to foil that plan. She's got me figured out. No, what they think of immediately is my survival is at risk here. I am going to lose my supply. What do I have to do now? And so that's when they begin pulling their tricks out. And one of the things that they do, if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist and, you had this love bombing and you saw this wonderful person, and then for the next 10 years, you've seen a complete different abusive person. All of a sudden, they're going to be everything you've ever wanted. So if you, I had a client who started doing this to her husband to try to buy time. And he had a lot of money. And every year he would get himself a new Land Rover car, SUV. And he would give her the old one. And she would say to him, just once, could I just get a new one? Instead of getting your hand-me-downs. No, there's no reason for you to have that. So she starts seeing me. He starts picking up on the fact that she's now pulling away. And do you know what he does? He orders a Land Rover from another state with every possible thing and has it delivered to their house.
Wow.
So now, okay, now I can get what I want. Okay, now he's changing. He sees that I want this, and now he's going to give it to me. So they use things like that to try to throw you off. They become perfect. All of a sudden, all the things you've wanted that they've said no to, all of a sudden now they're giving them to you. And you go, and logic tells you that they're hearing me. They're finally getting it.
I presume that only goes on for a finite period. It's temporary. And so if you're going to use that opportunity to milk it for creating the foundations to allow you to get out, if you, especially if you are financially controlled by your partner.
Yes.
And you need finances to leave the relationship.
Exactly. And it's a very good time if there's something that you've wanted them to sign. It's a very good time where you are holding the power now to get things done, to get them to put your name on something or whatever it is. You're holding the power, but you're right. It's a finite time and you've got to capitalize on it while you have it. But, it's what I'm saying is you can actually discover all of these things for yourself just by trying the things I'm suggesting. If you do it, you're going to see. And this is the benefit of... It
will expose the narcissist. If you're unsure, it will expose them.
Right. You're going to see exactly what they're doing to you.
Yeah. And this is the thing, because certainly the friend that I spoke about earlier, he didn't know he was dealing with a narcissist until he left. And it was only after, just trying every reasonable tactic in the book, trying to have a rational, normal, healthy separation,
Right.
that just seeing everything being thrown at him, that he started to realize that's not, he's dealing with a narcissist. And if you're in that situation, so how can you start regaining the power when the damage has been done, and the finances have been siphoned off, or the children have been weaponized? Because that's another thing about divorcing a narcissist. When children are involved, children will become a weapon to hurt you. And either parent, whatever narcissistic parent, they will do horrendous things. And do look up parental alienation if you be prepared for that, because it will come. There's no doubt about it. I'm convinced that all parental alienation behaviors come from because one parent is a narcissist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So if you find yourself in a situation, you've left the relationship and you're like, oh, this person's a narcissist, how can you pull back that power? How can you get it back on track? Because you've probably had to have let go of a lot of things. You've already lost out on it, but how can you build yourself back up? How could you exit the rest of the relationship, and stop that constant abuse that just keeps continuing?
Right. Well, narcissists are relentless in their abuse. So you're not going to stop it. The only thing that you can do, and this is where self-validation is really important, self-love, self-validation, boundaries, because you've got to know that you're okay no matter what's being said about you. And narcissists will tend to turn everyone in your life against you. They systematically turn your family against you, your friends. If they don't, you're really lucky. You have really good friends and a really strong family system. But in many cases, they will tear down your entire support structure. They'll go on Facebook. They'll find all the people you communicate with. They'll turn them against you. So you basically lose your, for the most part, you'll lose your support system. But you must have a support system. And because everything about narcissistic abuse is counterintuitive, it is the opposite of what you think it is. The way that you deal with it is opposite of what you think you should. You have to have a support system and a professional person who can guide you, even if you see them once a month or whatever, just to get a clear perspective on that you're okay. Yeah. Even though you feel like you're not, and you feel like the whole world is being turned against you. But you have to realize that narcissistic abuse is brainwashing, and brainwashing doesn't just dissipate when it stops. Once you're brainwashed, you're brainwashed. And until someone who knows how to do this can help you to deprogram and reprogram your thinking, you're going to carry those messages with you wherever you go. And that will be for the rest of your life. So it's really important that you get some help to help you clear out the cobwebs so that you can think. And when I talk about deprogramming and reprogramming, it sounds like it's some major thing. It's really not. Like when I work with someone, what I'm doing is guiding their thinking. I'm guiding them
course correction.
Yes, to think a different way. And through repetition of them doing that, eventually the old messages go away and the new messages are there. More positive things are planted in. But when you get out of these relationships, you don't know which end is up. And you're very easily manipulated by people. You're very easily hurt. You're angry. You're really angry, and so these are things that, have to be worked through. And it's very, very difficult to do it on your own because narcissistic abuse is among the worst thing that can happen to your mind.
Yeah, you need somebody that truly understands and validates what you've been through. And as we've spoke about in the previous podcast, if you don't understand narcissistic abuse, you make all kinds of excuses for the behavior, and that again just re-traumatizes the victim or the survivor of the narcissistic abuse. We will talk in our final week next week about recovery and healing and the techniques that you use. But I'm conscious that, you know, you said a line that narcissists are relentless. And even when you walk away from a narcissist and you end the relationship, whether it's the workplace relationship, the friendship, the family, they will still continue in their pursuit against you. And they will spend years. I'm pretty sure it was your book, because I've read several now, but I'm pretty sure your book said that it had a story of a lady that had left her husband, the narcissistic husband, and there'd been a sort of 3 years where there'd been no contact, and then all of a sudden he wrote to her mother out of the blue and just telling her mother how evil she was in the relationship and how she sucked him financially dry and she was taking money from her mum and, you know, just completely trying to turn the family
out of nowhere.
And
right.
So they're, you know, they will, just when you think it might have calmed down, they will, you know, a sucker punch will come from somewhere, and
you're right.
And they are relentless. And I mean, do they ever give up?
They do. They do give up, and it really depends on how you. So, you know, people will say to me, well, they really get it because I haven't heard from him in 6 months. And so I think he gets it. Like, no, you can't, don't be that secure.
Don't
you will
become complacent. Yeah.
Right. So that's one of the tactics that they use is they will go away for a while to throw you off so that you think they're gone. And then you relax. And then
it's relentless, isn't it?
And then they pop back in. It's like, hello, still here. You're mine. Just want to let you know I haven't forgotten that.
Yeah.
But it's really the way that you deal with those things, those pop-ins, that will determine how long they're going to continue to do it. And if you absolutely pay no attention to it, if you get a text, if you get an email, and there's some provocation, they're trying to hurt you in some way, you ignore it. Because if you acknowledge it, that most of the time what they're doing is just trying to piss you off.
Yeah.
And you just have to ignore it, because if you give any credence to it or pay any attention to it, it will continue. If you ignore it, they're going to eventually be like, well, this ain't working, so I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah. And they'll move on to their next supply, unfortunately. Right. And this is the challenge if you do have children and you're trying to co-parent with a narcissist, because there's obviously always, or there can always be a reason to be in touch, or you can, you know, make it very plausible. So, I mean, we've only got, 6 minutes left, but what can, what are some tactics, or what are the healthy boundaries you need to put in place if you are co-parenting with a narcissist? And, how can you obviously can't go no contact, because there has to be conversations around the kids.
Right. So there is no such thing as co-parenting with a narcissist. Okay. It's not going to work. You are parenting side by side. I can't think of the word, but you are not co-parenting. There's no co-parenting. It's not going to work. Everything that is worked out legally must be ironclad, and you must patch up every possible loophole. Because if you leave anything, they're looking for an in somewhere. So if you don't, so for instance, if you arrange for custody and visitation, and you say, all right, he will have every other Thursday nights or whatever. But if you don't say he will drop the children off at such and such a time and pick the children up at such and such a time, or my weekend starts at Saturday at 11 a.m. If you don't specifically say every single detail, they're going to try to mess with you and work around you, and it aggravates you. So it's really important when you're working on this custody agreement, before it's finalized, make sure every I is dotted and every T is crossed. That will save you a lot of heartache. You have to think
money,
everything up front. No, it's not cheap. But your children's, future, their mental health and their future is at stake. And, I would sell my house. I'd do anything to protect my children. So, we have to do this because it's their future.
Yeah.
And the narcissist is they're going to look for anything. Now, I recommend that you do not communicate with that person at all. Either you do lawyer to lawyer, or if you have children, then you try to push for an app like our Family Wizard or Talking Parents, where all communication is gone through this app, and it's all admissible in court. It's time stamped. So they can't start harassing you. And if they do, it's right there and it can be shown. So that's why this is so important. But if they're going to refuse that, and they're going to continue to try to communicate with you, they're going to continue to manipulate you. So you really should have as little contact with them as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's about doing everything you can, but it's that thing though, if there's children, little Johnny's sick, he needed, just to let you know, Johnny's unwell. And of course, a parent, if you're the parent that's not there, you just want to know, how's little Johnny doing? You want to, are they okay? Because the narcissist will maybe ramp it up. It might be just a cold, but they'll ramp it up, or it's COVID and they're seriously ill, and, to make you worry, so that you then, but you have to, and of course, the flip side of that is, if you don't engage, you don't ask how they are, and you just wait out until they're back home with you, then that gets twisted. Oh, they didn't even bother to text when Johnny was ill. They don't care, blah, right. This kind of thing. So how do you navigate around it? Because the court system is flawed.
Right, it's very flawed.
Yeah.
So communicating with a narcissist, it should be 10 words or less. If you're going to say anything, you don't put any emotion into it. You just say, how is little Mary?
Yeah.
Has she seen the doctor? Very simple things. And don't say, I'm worried, I'm concerned.
Give Mary my love, or give her a cuddle.
No, I wouldn't say that, because they're not going to.
No, I know
they're not going to. Say, you just ask how they are. Have they seen the doctor? Very basic things. Don't bring in any emotion. Don't ask them to do anything for you, but you're showing your concern. And if this is through an app or through a text or whatever, at least you have a record that you are checking up on this child. So, but you're not going to have the interaction with that child that you used to. It's not going to happen. And there's an adjustment period of letting go of that and understanding that now they have two parents, and the parents are separate from each other. And when they are with this parent is in charge. And it's real hard to do, but you need support to go through this, because it's painful. But after a time, you begin to adjust to the fact that when they're with you, you are in charge. And when they're with them, there's got to be a letting go. And I'm coming out with the second edition of Close Encounters of the Worst Kind, and there will be a chapter in there specifically about parental alienation, with all the do's and don'ts, all the things to
when
say.
Can we expect to see that out?
Right now, so the editing is done. Right now, I'm working on the details of having the layout and the book cover and all these kind of things done. But I would say within the next 6 months, it'll be out.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, so well, I do highly recommend it. Our time has come to an end. This is Randi's book again, Close Encounters of the Worst Kind. You can, of course, have one-to-one sessions with Randi. Yeah, absolutely do check out Randi's website. There's loads of resources there. And
let me just say that I'm extremely affordable. So if you think, you're seeing me as an expert, which I am, my goal is to help you, not to make myself rich. And so you'll find that my fees are ridiculously low compared to everyone else's. So it is affordable. I do this because I want you to get help. I want to help you. Okay. So that's my goal.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Randi. Your work is absolutely vital. I think we're going to be seeing more awareness come to the forefront on this topic as we move through life and grow. So thank you again. I must let you go. I know you've got a client, but next week we will be talking about healing and recovering from narcissistic abuse.
Sounds great. Perfect way to end the month. Okay, Suzy, have a great week. Take care.
You too. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.